So now we kick it out to the people at Naomi's Village. We go to Julie and Bob. We're going to hear from them first. Bob served over there, started out in medical missions, which was pretty incredible, and that just led to a heart for the area in Kenya. And I don't want to spoil what they do.
Oh, yeah.
They do some incredible things there, but we're also not only going to see a video from those guys, we're also going to have an interview with Bill, who is one of the founders and on the board or whatever it is at Naomi's Village. And so we're really excited about this. This is an incredible story. There's a lot of heavy stuff in this in the video.
Very heavy.
It's an incredible testimony of just the work God's done there, though.
Yeah.
And so let's kick it to those guys. Let's see what they have to say, and let's hear their incredible testimony of how the Lord's used them over in Kenya.
Hi, I'm Bob Mendonça. This is my wife, Julie. We're from Flower Mound, Texas. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about what we do in Kenya. We first started going there in 2003 as a family. We took our 4-year-old Will and our 5-year-old Emily. We served under Samaritan's Purse at a rural hospital there in a place called Kajabi. That trip, from the patients that I treated to the challenges that we faced, to the safari we took together, changed our lives. Leaving our suburban existence and my practice to serve and to feel how others live brought the meaning of the gospel home in ways we never thought would happen. We returned the next year, this time for 2 months. As I operated on patients with tumors and fractures, wild animal bites and infections, Julie set out to see more. She went down into the Great Rift Valley below that mission station and found a truck stop town filled with small children and babies, many destitute and orphaned by the AIDS crisis, which was ravaging Africa at that time. What she saw broke her heart. It reset it on a new course, and mine as well. We were shown a 5-acre plot near that town. We prayed over it, unsure of what the future would bring. After 2 more trips to Kenya, God called us to move there in 2008. He had furthered our passion for helping orphans and vulnerable children, given Julie the name Naomi's Village, named after Naomi in the book of Ruth, and clarified our vision. We were to raise an army of orphans from among Kenya's 2 million parentless children who would grow up and do likewise, becoming Christ's hands and feet to do the work needed to transform their own nation. That meant building a home and programs capable of fulfilling God's call. Naomi's Village Home is just that, a place that provides nutrition, clothing, health care, spiritual care, education, counseling, and most of all, field training and serving others. In 2011, we opened our doors and brought in 4-year-old Joshua, a boy orphaned by family violence. One dark night in his tiny rural homestead, his father killed Joshua's pregnant mother with a knife, then did the same to his 1-year-old baby brother and 7-year-old brother. Joshua slipped out a small hole in the one-room shack into the dark night. He returned hours later when the home had fallen silent. Joshua found everyone dead, including his father, who had hung himself. He slept against the lifeless body of his mother and was taken away from that home and his family the next day, never to see it again. Bringing him in on January 27, 2011 was a turning point, when a construction project and a dream became a home, a place for redemption. Since then, 87 other total orphans have joined Joshua. In 2013, we opened Cornerstone Preparatory Academy in order to properly educate our orphans. Within 3 years, and with God's calling, we had expanded this school to a community campus that now educates 180 community children as well. These children receive 12 nutritious meals weekly, excellent academics, character development, healthcare, sports programs, music, and arts. In order for our community children to fully succeed, we knew we had to put early childhood interventions in place. So in 2017, we founded LEAP Preschool to educate 3- and 4-year-olds, both from Naomi's Village and the community, preparing them for kindergarten at Cornerstone. Additionally, we also provide interventions for pregnant community women, including a nurse visitation program that educates and gives resources to expectant mothers and those having infants and toddlers up to 2 years old. This program educates underprivileged mothers about the importance of nutrition, early literacy, attachment, and healthy parenting practices, among many other things. We also have a robust community development program called Maendeleo Initiative. This program gives clean water, solar systems, table banking initiatives, counseling, and vocational training to impoverished parents of our community students, thereby helping to raise their standard of living. These same parents are brought into a covenant relationship with our schools, doing their part to help us raise leaders. Julie will share one of these transformational stories now.
I want you to meet two of our children whose lives are being transformed through Leap Preschool and Cornerstone. Peter and Tabitha are twins who live at home with their mother Janet in our local community. We met Peter and Tabitha in 2017 when they were 3 years old, and we brought them into Leap Preschool. Their mother, Janet, who was trapped in an abusive relationship and suffering the numerous ill effects of abject poverty, was despairing of life and had no hope. After a short time of her children attending our preschool, Janet began to come out of her hopelessness. She told us one day as she met the children at the bus stop that Leap Preschool was the only good and constant thing in her life. Peter and Tabitha flourished as they spent their days in the safe, playful environment of Leap. This past December, the twins graduated from kindergarten at Cornerstone. Their mother was overcome with joy as spontaneous dancing broke out at the graduation ceremony. Peter and Tabitha are now in first grade. Their mother, Janet, is working at Cornerstone, and there is real hope for the future of this family. This is just the story of two children in our schools. We have 350 children in our programs, and they all need help. Naomi's Village, Cornerstone, and Leap Preschool's children need your help if they're going to succeed in changing their country for Christ. Please help us by praying, come to visit us in Kenya, and most importantly, sponsor one of our 350 amazing children. It'll change their life, and I bet it will change yours too. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to our interview. My name is Chase Durham. I'm joined by Logan Andrew, and our special guest this evening is Bill McMillan with Naomi's Village in Kenya. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Kenya is in East Africa, and it's bordered by Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Somalia, just on the coast of the Indian Ocean. For those of you who are not familiar with Naomi's Village, it is a Kenyan children's home, a preschool, and an academy, and their mission is to raise the next generation of Kenyan leaders. The vision of this organization is incredible. I love it. And it's to help end generational poverty in the Rift Valley and the Kenya area, and to help end systemic corruption by equipping children for compassionate and courageous leadership. And so, Bill, thank you so much for joining us. As I was preparing to meet you, I was just reading a bunch about Naomi's Village on y'all's website, and then also talking to several of our church members who have gotten to go out to Naomi's Village and serve alongside with everything that's happening out there. And so, Bill, why don't you go ahead and start just by sharing a little bit about yourself, who you are and your role, sharing about Naomi's Village. And then also, I want you to share how Cottonwood has been able to impact Naomi's Village.
Well, Chase, thank you guys so much. What an honor to be a part of this, and I commend you guys so much about highlighting missions. And of course, Cottonwood is a great mission church. That's what it's known for, and we're appreciative of that for sure. I'm Bill McMillan. I'm the executive director at Naomi's Village, which basically means I run the U.S. operations of Naomi's Village, which in the U.S., what we're kind of responsible for is for corporate sponsorships, church sponsorships, and church relations, all donations that come from foundations, donors that support special projects for Naomi's Village. We're also responsible to build sponsorships and retain sponsorships. We have about almost 1,200 sponsors for our children at Naomi's Village and at Cornerstone. And we're constantly supplying them with information, opportunities to connect with their children, opportunities to see what's going on, to really have a real touch in their lives and see the impact that they're making as sponsors. And do a lot of video conferencing with their children, a lot of cool stuff kind of to where they can feel that this is really someone that God has placed into their family and into their life, and also getting new sponsors. And so we're responsible for that. We're also responsible, we put together trips, mission trips each year, all year long. That could be families, it could be churches like Cottonwood Creek, who's gone many times and has had a big impact at Naomi's Village, and some corporations. We also have interns. We have college interns that go for the summer primarily, but also different times of the year for people who are working on their masters and they're kind of in between, and they go and spend 6 months or so in Kenya working with Naomi's Village. And all marketing about Naomi's Village, all the financials, all those kind of things are done here in the U.S. So I'm kind of overseeing all that goes on there. Naomi's Village itself is, as you said so well, in the Great Rift Valley of Kenya. And it is a children's home that started in the heart of Bob and Julie Mendonza, its founders, probably about 13, 14 years ago, when Bob went to Kenya with Samaritans first. Bob is an orthopedic surgeon, had a great practice in Flower Mound. He went there several times. And, when you go do these kind of things, God uses you to impact and change lives and that you can't imagine. But God also probably uses the event and what you're doing to change your life more than you change anybody else's. And what happened to Bob was just that. He had a vocation here, being an orthopedic surgeon. He got a calling when he went to Kenya. And when he saw it, he had to come home and convince Julie that his wife, who's an educator, let's move our 2 children who were both under 10, I think they were just little guys. Let's move them to Kenya and to live in the Great Rift Valley. And that makes perfect sense. And so she didn't buy into that immediately, but she did go on a mission trip with him. And when he was working at the mission hospital in the Great Rift Valley, she would leave the hospital area and she would go down into the local village. The local village was occupied. It's really not a residence. It's really a drive-through for truckers and a huge place for prostitution and things like that. And this was in the wake of the AIDS epidemic in Africa and in Kenya. And so when she walked down into the valley, she saw just countless numbers of children all along the highways, in doorways, in fields. And she went back, told Bob all the stories and all the things she saw. And she came home and she could never get that out of her mind. And so they both felt the call to leave Dallas-Fort Worth, head off to Kenya, to start a children's home, something that neither one of them had ever done. And they were granted by the Lord a 5-acre property, I think. And on that 5 acres, they began, officially maybe 9, 10 years ago, something like that, with just a few children. And now today, they have 88 children at Naomi's Village with the occupancy level of 100. And they have great staff there. They have 4 teachers they have 4 caregivers to each student, each child. And it's just an incredible place. We talk about other things that have grown from that beginning, but it began in the heart of someone who just got a call from the Lord and just went and ended up doing something they'd never done before, but it's exactly what God had purposed them to do.
That's awesome. And could you share a little bit about just Cottonwood's relationship to Naomi? Yeah.
It's huge, and it's really, it's not just huge, but always in the Lord's hands. It's not always just about provision. God's not only a great provider, God is a great timekeeper. It's always about his timing as well as his provision. And Cottonwood, of course, as I said earlier, has gone on a lot of trips, and they've taken people, and the kids from Naomi's Village especially have fallen in love with them. And I know the people from Cottonwood who have gone have fallen in love with the children there. A lot of Cottonwood families sponsor children at Naomi's Village or at Cornerstone. So that's huge on a day-to-day. These children would not have the opportunity that they have today. They would not have an opportunity. This is their opportunity. This is their second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th. This is it. And they wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the people of Cottonwood Creek. So that's amazing, and that's ongoing. But you guys have done a few things recently that, one is you decided to help us with the construction of our middle school and high school that's going on. And you have some classrooms that you've given money toward, and those are being built today. And a year or two, they're going to have a lot of noise going on in them, and a lot of learning, a lot of joy, and a lot of hope for kids. The kids who go, we'll talk about our school in a minute, and you'll kind of get the feel of how special that place is and how special those rooms that you've provided will be. The other thing that you've done is the last couple of years, the food project that you do around Christmas or in your mission.
Called the gift weekend.
The gifts weekend, yeah. We've been there and we set up tables and everything, but the food that you put together in the packets for the last 2 years have been given to Naomi's Village. And it's a lot of food. And we put together processes and plans, and we definitely were using some of that to help in some areas of great need. But just recently, to no one's planning, COVID hit Kenya, like not as strong yet as it's hit the United States, but it hit. And then some floods have happened in the last month and a half to our community. And again, God's provision through Cottonwood Creek was the food. God's timing for that food is now. And we're able to go to the children that go to our school that don't live in the village, but live in their homes. We're able to provide food for them. And we're also now able to provide food for our community who would not have that food and would be in a very, very tough place. If it wasn't for what your people were doing, having a blast, listening to Christian music, laughing and having a great time putting these packets together and wondering maybe or maybe not, would they make a difference? Well, the answer is more than you could ever imagine.
Wow. Man, just so encouraging, like you said, to you think you know what God's gonna do, but just there's this common theme amongst all these conversations that Chase and I have gotten to have, that his plan, his vision is so much greater, and we get to see like this much and to hear all along. This was his plan for that food, and just the gift that it is. They get to see a glimpse of that. But something cool and crazy is that Chase and I actually used to attend church with Bob and Julie Mendonza so many years ago. And we both can remember them, getting up on stage and sharing just their heart of what the Lord has burdened them to do and to go. And so I just want to know, so in all of these conversations, the theme is the same, that these missionaries and these church planners, their heart is to meet the needs of their community, wherever that may be, wherever God has called them.
Yeah.
Very Christ-like, going into the communities and hearing the hearts of the people and having compassion. And so what are, the specific needs in Naomi's Village, surrounding Naomi's Village? And how are you guys, trying to come alongside that community?
That's a great question. the needs around our community, of course, or what takes place in a lot of countries where poverty is reigns, so to speak. So all the issues that come from poverty, all the whether that's hunger, whether that's you know, discrimination in a lot of ways, especially in Kenya and in Africa, many times for young girls, just opportunities that are there and not there. So when Bob and Julie went there, it was to meet that one need. It was there to make a home for those who did not have a home. Matter of fact, their deal was, if you want to value a child and you want to change a child, give the child belonging. Get the child to belong somewhere. And of course, first it was in a home environment, and these were all children who had been orphaned. These are all children whose homes and home life was stripped away from them. And there was no place of belonging for them, and there was not going to be a place of belonging for them until Naomi's village. And so that was the first kind of, but when you go and you just are obedient to the Lord, and you kind of do what the Lord calls you to do, and he starts meeting that need, and of course kids started coming, and they were able to build one of the nicest children's homes anywhere, and really provide a place for them of not only family, but also where they could learn about Christ and learn about his love for them and be connected to the church, the bride of Christ, and get their value from that also. But then a school came out of it. You know, other needs were shown up, like we need to have a school where the children, not only for Naomi's village, but where the children from our community could go to school and get the best education in Kenya. That's what this school offers. The children from the village, children from Naomi's village go there, but also children from the community go there. And the children from the community, one of the criterias or part of the application process is these are the poorest of the poor. These are the ones who are too poor to go to a regular school there. And their chance of education is zero, basically. And but they're the perfect person for Cornerstone Academy. And so they come to Cornerstone and they get an education. Then out of that came community development, where take care of the parents and families of the students that still live in the village. I take care of the village itself and help with water, help with solar lighting, help with the best homes that they can get to where their students can grow and learn and all those kind of things. So community development came from that. Preschool education came from that. Working with mothers now that are having babies, and what do you do and how do you parent and what are the best ways during this time. So it came with that little first act of obedience. And once you do that, God starts opening your eyes to other needs. And Bob and Julie and the staff at NV have just been obedient to follow those needs.
That's really cool. So I'm curious, the founders are Bob and Julie, but who's Naomi? Where did this come from?
That's a great question. Naomi's village got the name from Naomi out of the book of Ruth. Julie was studying the book of Ruth, got really impressed. This is a hope. This is a story of not belonging and belonging. This is a story of redemption. And it was a perfect sense for them of what they had dreamed and the vision God had put on their heart. It fit so well with what they were trying to do. So there was no physical Naomi, except the one that's in the book of Ruth, and that's really where it came from. But after they named it Naomi's village, they did begin to pray. You know, one day it would be so cool if we have a little girl that comes, and she comes at a very young age, you know, and she really has no options in this world. She really is, this is it for her, and this is the place she needs to be, or there is no other place. And about 7 8 years ago, something like that, the Lord sent a little girl. They named her Naomi. the first and only one right now. And she's been there ever since and has grown in her sense of value, our sense of confidence, her sense of self-esteem, so much so that she thinks Naomi's Village was named after her instead of her being named after Naomi's Village. So she's doing well. But so there is a Naomi now.
That's awesome. So I think you mentioned before, but about how many kids currently reside in Naomi's Village, and like you said, they are orphans, but I know there's also a school. So are there parents who can send their kids to that school, or yeah?
Yeah, there's both things. Naomi's Village is a home, is children's home with children that have been displaced from their families, whether it's AIDS, whether it's parents in prison, whether it's abandonment completely, whether it's a young child raising a young child, whatever is taken, they don't have a home anymore for whatever reason. So there are 88 children from toddler age to high school now age at Naomi's Village. And they all have their own quarters that are age appropriate. A baby's home and rooms for babies, and then rooms for for preschool and elementary, and then we even have a teen housing now for teenagers to have more independence, and so it's set up to be just like a home with a lot of kids. Just a big family is kind of the environment. 3 meals a day, lots of snacks. They have a great time. They started putting them into school, create their own curriculum and school program when they created Naomi's Village. And so the kids at Naomi's Village that were school age were going to school. And through some testing and some things like that, they noticed that the education that the children from Naomi's Village was getting was very superior to what was being received in their community. So it then became their deal of, we just can't keep this here. We have to go out. And so they went out, created Cornerstone about 4 or 5 years ago. And it is incredible what God has done with that. It runs probably close to 300, a little over 300 students. 66 of those, somewhere in that neighborhood, are from Naomi's Village. The rest are community children that live with their parents in the community. Their school was stopped because of COVID also. So we're reaching to them and working with them, kind of like teachers here in the U.S. are doing with their students at this time. But beautiful facilities, first class facilities with libraries, computer lab. Again, because of Cottonwood Creek and other churches, middle school and high school is being built. We have a brand new sports field for soccer and track, and we have a brand new gymnasium. And all that in that very short period of time. It's just been incredible. So the hopes is that will go to 1,000 students. And again, predominantly community students, because Naomi's Village is Naomi's Village. It will stay within the context of that size. So it'll have 66 to 70 students going to the school, where the rest will be from the community.
That's incredible. You've already shared about Sweet and Naomi, but do you have any other just like awesome life transformation stories about all these kids that, have found a home at Naomi's Village?
Yeah. The stories are incredible. And it's hard to even, it's hard to put your head around a little bit, the stories. And they share the stories, and they protect, of course, the children within all that context. And you can get some of these stories online as you look. And please, if people can, go on Facebook, hook up with Naomi's Village there and on Instagram. And a lot of those stories are shared pretty often. But I think one of the stories that kind of has impacted me the most, and one almost every time I hear it, it just, kind of sets me back. But it's so much like many of them. But there's a little boy, a little baby named David. David is 4 years old today. But David, when he was just born, was put in a plastic bag and was thrown into a pit latrine, which is where people go outdoors, to use the restroom. And he was thrown in there to die in that plastic bag. But he hit, and I'm not the best person to tell the story. Bob and Julie are the best people to tell the story. But in some miraculous way, when he was thrown into the pit latrine, he was on some kind of little ledge or some kind of place where it kind of kept him. And also the plastic bag kept him above water. And so that was meant for probably his destruction, was some things that kind of saved him. Well, a lady went to the pit latrine to use the restroom, and she heard noise. And she went and got some people, and they got inside the pit latrine and pulled baby David out. And he was then taken to Naomi's village. Today he's 4 years old. This week, as we're talking, he just went through a surgery because of some of the deals about his younger days and all that kind of stuff. And he's got another surgery to go through. But our sponsors and people connected to Naomi's village are sponsoring those surgeries and helping support that. He's a healthy, physically, mentally young boy that God has great plans for. And there's just so many stories like that. They have found kids in fields, wrapped up, left, for whatever would grab them. Those who have had great violence in their homes. One young man, dad kind of went on a tear one night because of alcohol and a lot of other things. And he snuck out, but the rest of his family was killed along with his father. And they have him. And these kids that come from this, to see the joy in their life, to see the happiness, to see the belief that God has a purpose for them, and they're going to succeed, and they're going to be what God uses to change Kenya. So it's amazing. But that's the Lord. What we think has no purpose, to him has great purpose and value. And so
it's like just what you said, man. Like only the Lord can take
only the Lord,
as sickening as that, and change it and transform it into something, just his big grand story of redemption and restoration. So man, that is moving. And I know that Naomi's village heart is to meet the needs of these children. And Julie, her heart is burdened in that way. But I heard you say earlier how now you have the opportunity to come alongside these mothers and really partner with the family. And so, how are some of the ways, or maybe some testimonies of, these adult lives, these parents' lives who have been impacted by the ministry at Naomi's village?
Yeah. Well, they're working, as you said, they're working with a lot of young moms that are pregnant, and they're beginning early on to teach them the best ways to raise a newborn, and things that they haven't been taught, how important play is, how important touch is, the things that we just kind of take for granted. They're a little bit different in their culture. They have social workers that go to their homes and help them prepare a home for that. They have classes, and they have, pre-K now for when after the child's born, and the mothers go through their classes. When the child can do that, they go to that, in kindergarten, and then on up. Built a whole system for that growth. But another way that they've really impacted lives of adults in the community is through Cornerstone. Cornerstone has a great story of one is a family that had children going there, a mom that had children going to Cornerstone, and they were growing, doing things, and she got a job then at Cornerstone. It opens up employment for those within the village and for the parents of the children in the village to begin working at where their children are going to school, so they start getting paid, and then they can start providing. And so it has this ripple effect that starts here, but then in matters of moments almost, it spreads out and starts touching families. And so you get to see pictures of, kids graduating from kindergarten or sixth grade and their mom holding them, knowing that, or at least believing that this was an opportunity they never could dream that their children are having. But at the same time, I'm getting to work here and I'm being able to provide for my children from the same spot. So it's pretty incredible what's happened.
I love that. And man, I heard recently that Naomi's village was hit by a flood, as if the pandemic was not enough to be dealing with right now. So what happened with that flood? What kind of damage, or how has that impacted Naomi's village?
The pandemic has not exploded as much there as it is here. They're expecting the peak of the pandemic maybe in August or something like that. And so we'll see how all that plays. With those from COVID, we've been able to do a lot of training within the community about what is COVID-19 and sanitation type stuff, equip them with food packets, all those kind of things, give them tools where they can take care of themselves and their families, teach them about social distancing, all those kind of things. But then in the midst of that, as you said, Chase, a flood came. It's been raining there since October. It's been raining there for a long time. And finally, the flood just kind of came through, knocked down some of the security walls and things like that at Naomi's village. And got a lot of mud and a lot of water in the guest house where a lot of people from Cottonwood have stayed, and messed up the playground and some things like that pretty well. But all that, again, thanks to sponsors and thanks from donors who were watching and following on social media, saw what was taking place and responded. And those walls are going up, those buildings are cleaned out, and life is, and new kind of irrigation systems and some things like that to prevent the floods from happening again are being put into place, and working alongside the community to protect the community. Because not only did Naomi's village get hit by it, but a lot in the community who have homes that can't withstand any kind of rush of nature or anything like that. So we've been able to help the community restore and rebuild also. So it's all looking much better today than a few weeks ago, for sure.
And that's awesome. The work that is happening in Naomi's village is incredible. I know every time our teams come home, it's like all they talk about for months at a time is what the Lord is doing out there. And so we're just greatly encouraged by you. Thank you for taking the time.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Could you, before we end our interview, share how our church can just stay in touch? I know you had mentioned Facebook and Instagram. That way, how can we be praying? How can we know like what to be praying for? How can we stay connected? How can we give even more financially, like directly? So yeah, just share those things with us.
Yeah. Well, just one of the greatest things, of course, you can do is and what so many people within your church do for us, and that is pray for us and to continue to pray that God will pour His love and value on these precious people that are in the Great Rift Valley and on the children at Naomi's Village and Cornerstone, that they'll grow, continue to grow, to see their importance through the eyes of the Lord, and they'll know how much He loves them and cares for them. So continue to pray for them, for safety, all those kind of things that your church does. Of course, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, sign up for emails and go on our website. There's blogs, there's all those kind of things. If you're not sponsoring a child, we encourage you to do so. You can sponsor a child at Naomi's Village or at Cornerstone. You give them hope. I mean, those sponsorships for children at Cornerstone that meant education for them, today because school's not going on, but it means food for them. It means so much more than just an education. It means a livelihood for their families. It means hope for them for the future. So if you can sponsor, it's like $33 a month. It's not very much. We'd encourage you to do that. A lot of people at Cottonwood do, and we're grateful for that. Again, thank you for just the support that Cottonwood has given. Come on a team. I think a team's coming next year. It's a great trip for students. And if you're getting out of high school and you're interested in some kind of internship or something like that, it's a phenomenal place to spend a few months and let the Lord use you there.
That's awesome. Bill, thank you so much. So encouraged by you. Church family, I hope you guys were just all encouraged by what the Lord's doing over in the Great Rift Rally in Kenya. And so thanks for joining us this evening. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cottonwood Creek. We will see you guys tomorrow. We have 3. We're going to close it out very strong. We have people, West Searcy with East West Ministries. We have the East Baltimore Graffiti Church. And we also have someone who is going to give a powerful testimony of what they've been doing in Central Asia. So, on behalf of Jonathan Jennings and Gabe Veazey, keep it Christ-like, Cottonwood.